Hi, my name is Kerry.
And I'm Mike.
We want to welcome you to our first episode of P.O.D, Post-Orthodoxy Discussions. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what P.O.D means. So post-orthodoxy, do you want to explain what orthodoxy means, Mike?
Yeah, we've found ourselves post-orthodoxy. I think the first time I ever heard the word orthodox, it was in reference like Orthodox Jews. Mm-hmm. And we looked it up, and orthodoxy means to adhere strictly to tenets or beliefs. And so we were Orthodox Mormons. I wasn't. Were you an Orthodox Mormon?
Yep, I was.
Well, we're not. I don't know if we can say that anymore because we're supposed
Definitely
to say
not Orthodox anymore.
Well, or Orthodox members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But
right.
Yeah. So we found ourselves now. Today is, I think, June 14th, 2022, and we're definitely beyond that. Post-orthodoxy.
Right. So post-orthodoxy, and then the purpose of this episode is to just have discussions about that. And it's a broad topic. Mm-hmm. It's a very broad topic, but an important one that we have found, because there's not a lot of space for either believing members that have some questions, which puts you in that post-orthodoxy category, or people who are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or PMO, as they like to call them.
Physically in, mentally
out. Or people who have left and kind of miss the community and the connection and need people they can talk to. There's a lot of people that fit into this discussion we're trying to have.
Yeah, and we want to give some credit to where credit's due. Mm-hmm. We live in the Boise, Idaho area, and there's a Facebook group that we found and we're invited to join, and I think it's called like the Boise Post-Orthodoxy Support Group.
Right.
Maybe.
So that's where we got post-orthodoxy from.
Yeah, and it's some people still go to church, some don't, some still members of the church.
Some are all the way in and have a spouse that's out.
Yeah.
So like mixed faith.
Which is we'll have a whole bunch of talk about mixed faith marriages, right? And so we really just have liked the idea that instead of just having a tag of being ex-Mormon, being a post-orthodoxy.
Right. And this podcast is not affiliated with that group. We just wanted to give credit where we first found that name, right?
Yeah, and we were coming up with names, I like the idea of thriving after orthodoxy, and there's the Mormon Stories Thrive podcast, and I listened to that with Margie DeLynn, and we actually were.
So, are you talking about where we first heard about pods?
Yeah.
Okay, because we kind of created an acronym with this.
Yeah, pod.
So.
And we were like, oh yeah, I remember. We
didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of we're like, oh, that kind of fits into pods. So let's talk about pods.
Yeah, we were at a Thrive event in Salt Lake City, and what did we learn about? What did we hear about pods? And it was the concept was like creating community.
John DeLynn was talking, and I don't know if this is his original idea. I believe he heard it from someone else that people need to create pods, and that's kind of what you do. That's kind of the purpose that religion serves, is it creates community, and everybody kind of needs a pod of people around them where they can talk openly and freely, and that's what we're seeking to create, because a lot of times when you leave religion or are coming out of orthodoxy and religion, it can be a really lonely space, kind of a space where you don't know what to do. And so by creating these discussions and talking openly about, and we're going to talk about a lot of topics, okay, and hopefully we can create that pod, the post-orthodoxy pod.
Yeah, and help everybody find their own pods. I think it's a plural thing. Like,
right?
Did you talk about fish?
I don't know what you're talking about. So
just sort of like pods of fish, surround each other. You've mentioned that before. They surround each other, but they don't have to necessarily be going in the same direction.
Yeah, like they're like some are in the middle, some are on the outside, some are swimming really fast, some are swimming really slow, and but it's all good. It's all part of the pod. And creates safety and creates community.
Yeah, and finding community, I think, has been what I found, I think, being the biggest challenges. Not quite fitting in.
Because in Mormonism, it's created for you, right? It's
like
there's an app that tells you where you go to find your pod.
Yeah, I mean, you move and you have instant friends and neighbors
Right.
and ministers and teachers and home teachers and visiting teachers.
But I think in this day and age, this is pretty instant too. There are other ways that are maybe not as easy and right in your hand at all times. You have to seek it out a little bit, but that can be effective for creating the same kind of thing.
Yeah, so we were throwing around ideas. I liked the idea of pot, P.O.D, post-orthodoxy thriving, or talks, but you didn't like pot.
I do like pot. But I didn't like pot for the name of the podcast because I thought it might make some people feel that's what we were trying to have this be about, and that's not what it's about. Even though we might talk about it.
Yeah.
We might.
Yeah. So. If we do, we might have to get some friends or relatives on. So that's what post-orthodoxy discussions. It's an acronym of P.O.D. Hopefully that we just want to have conversations that help people create community and talk about things that might be hard to talk about.
Right.
We just have found ourselves in this space and
let's talk a little bit about how we found ourselves in this space.
How did we find ourselves in this space?
Okay, and I think we're going to do kind of a synopsis because this could be a long discussion, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of narrow it down to the important parts.
Yeah, we'll just a short introduction.
Should we go back to time about...
Give this in little part. If I break it up in YouTube, we'll give this called like the short introduction.
Should we go back in time about 2 years ago-ish?
Well, why don't you tell our story?
Like when we met?
Yeah. Okay,
so Mike and I met in 1999. I knew we were over there. So 1999, we were both attending a student ward. We were both returned missionaries. And I was giving a talk in sacrament meeting. Mike doesn't remember what that talk was about, but he remembers what I was wearing. I don't know if he liked the skirt or sweater better.
Yes.
Okay, good answer. So anyways, he found me after that talk and we started communicating, and as things go in student wards, quickly developed into a relationship and marriage, and we had 2 kids.
We don't have children anymore.
We do have children.
They're both
still.
Adults. She doesn't like that.
I don't
joke.
like it when he says that. He thinks he's so funny. But yes, they are both adults. So we're going to be empty nesters, or not yet.
Yeah,
we still have one.
He's a roommate.
And he's a roommate.
Yeah.
He's not really in the nest.
But with less than a year after we got married, I started what ended up being a 20-year career with the church as a full-time seminary teacher.
Okay.
And we were full-time seminary teachers, callings, children, all that good stuff. And we'll fast forward.
And being a seminary teacher, you are in kind of a sub-pod of Mormonism. And that's a whole nother episode probably. Yeah. But so when we say we were all in, we were all in.
Yeah. So I started that career in January of 2021. And we'll fast forward to January of 2020. So 19 years later, we are like, I'm just normal Mormon, just doing my normal Mormon thing.
You don't look normal.
We'll have to show a picture in the background if we get editing skills. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Kerry says, what'd you say to me?
Well, it wasn't out of the blue for me.
Yeah.
But something that I've been brewing for a long time, and I needed to bring it up with Mike.
Why don't you tell a little bit about that brewing then?
Okay, so my parents were converts to the church, so I didn't grow up with all the pioneer ancestry and all that stuff. We were rather poor. I had issues with, and I'm going to go really fast here, I had issues with tithing and how that affected my mother because we were poor and how it made her feel. And I remember
2 siblings on mission.
At a very young age, I just felt that tithing was kind of a crappy concept that especially towards really poor people. Anyways, so I grew up thinking that, even though I was always a full tithe and full fast offering payer because I believed it brought blessings from God. And so I go along. I was the youngest of 8 children. 6 of the 8 served missions, so I followed along and did the same thing. served a mission. While I was on my mission, my father passed away. And long story short, I was told the brethren expect you to stay. And so I stayed. And so another major crack in my shelf. At the time, I was told that this was a noble thing and it should make me feel good. But it didn't make me feel good, right? And so I was dealing with that, those two different ideas. Okay, I was being told one thing and then this other thing, and really weighed on me. But went along, got married, had kids, husband becomes a seminary teacher, and I actually told him to be a seminary teacher, right?
Yeah, we blame it all on her.
Yeah, it's all my fault. But I told him to be a seminary teacher, and he was. And 20 years later...
19 years later.
19 years later.
Well, 20 years into our marriage, 19 years into my career, she says.
But I had these questions. I read the gospel topic essays because I was told they would help with questions people have. And we know what happens sometimes when people read the gospel topic essays, and I just... I followed the footnotes and did all the things and did a lot of study. What are you mouthing?
Don't read the footnotes.
Oh, don't read the footnotes, yeah. So, but I did a lot of study, right? Reading footnotes is supposed to be good, but anyway. So, finally got to the point where I just had to tell him. So that's where we're getting to the point of the story is I just told him one night, Mike, I'm done with the church. And, but that's a bigger deal for us because you need to remember that this was our livelihood.
Yeah.
And being a couple in CS, it's not just the employee. It's your spouse needs to be a part of your belief and your orthodoxy. And I found myself in a place where I wasn't anymore, and I told him so. And a lot of people have come to me since then and said, how did you feel in telling Mike? Like, wasn't that scary? And I was like, well, no, because I knew he wasn't an asshole.
Isn't that a good compliment? I don't think a spouse can give or get a better compliment than that.
Right.
I'm getting a t-shirt. I'm not an asshole. But it was devastating. Mm-hmm. It was devastating.
I knew it would be.
For both of us. It was devastating for both of us.
I knew it was going to be. I knew the weight of what I was telling him and what it meant. It changed our lives forever from that point on.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Literally.
So my response was, all right, well, but what does that mean for us? Mm-hmm. And that was like a big question. Right. Huge question.
And I think my response was kind of like, nothing.
Yeah, and it was mine too.
Because I wasn't even thinking that. It was.
Well, I wasn't thinking that either. But what does that mean for us now?
I think you even said something like, "What does that mean for our eternal marriage?" And I was just like, not even, like I wasn't even thinking that. I was like,
I didn't say that, did I?
I think you did.
But
I was just like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the God I believed in still would have kept you.
Yeah. Anyways.
He would have let us stick together.
Yeah.
So that was 2020, and that was pre-COVID.
But it was January 2020.
So we're not COVID casualties. Yeah, we like to say that.
Mm-hmm. But COVID sure did help.
It made it easier to not have to go to church, and so I was teaching. And are we telling our full story, or is that gonna be a separate episode?
I think we just need to do a synopsis. Yeah, but
I was teaching.
Can go back into all these things.
I went to counseling a lot. This is the way I explain it looking back. I realized that for me, I never tried to tell Kerry that she was wrong or you need to believe this or that's this. We realized that we were really able to quickly differentiate. That's one of our favorite words.
Yes. I remember telling you one time we were talking, this was before I even told you I was having troubles with the church, and I just told him, I said, I just need to think different than you. And I remember you looking at me so weird at me like, what the heck? Like, what does that mean? And I didn't even know this word, right? So
this is years ago.
So, but I just had this deep feeling inside, like my thoughts are different. Mm-hmm. They're different than what he's being told at his work meetings are different than what I'm learning at church. And what is this difference that I'm feeling? And I learned the word differentiation, which basically means being a part of a group, but being able to think differently than the group. And the church does not allow that.
Yeah,
and especially being a CES employee.
That's a whole episode.
Yeah, but differentiation, I love that word because it gave me vocabulary to describe what it was I was feeling. And it's powerful just to even be able to describe what you're feeling, even though you still have to go through it.
Yeah, and these were tough conversations. It was weird because the closer so the way I describe it is if this is me and this is Kerry and this is my hands represent our faith. I realize that my faith and I think you would agree, our faith just leaned on each other.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, and we didn't discuss it.
Don't they talk about that a lot in,
they do.
In like church? They describe it like that, right? Like,
so what happened was when she removed her faith, my faith was at a 45-degree angle and unsupported and completely free-falling. All right? And it's weird because the more we disagreed, the more we talked, the more intimacy we had.
Well, because remember the time I told you, I said, I will stop talking about this. Yeah, I will not tell you my issues, because I was bringing up these issues and it was bringing in a little bit of contention.
Each issue can be a talk.
And I was just like, I'm not going to, I will back off and just not say anything. And he just said, no. He's like, absolutely not. You have to tell me everything, because we'd always had the type of marriage where we could talk to each other, right? And that's a hard thing when you all of a sudden have like a huge chasm between your beliefs, and finding a way to talk about that.
Yeah, it would exceed my mental emotional capacity.
Right.
I broke down.
It did a lot of times. But you're right. It improved our intimacy as a couple. Yeah. And we're talking about emotional intimacy. Yeah. And it
that's another topic.
We had to find...
That's a discussion.
But we had to find... We had to really learn. We had to relearn how to communicate with each other. And it's a good thing. Yeah, and I guess
if I describe, you saw that it was hurting me.
Yes.
And you were willing to not talk. And I was like, no. I was like, you have to tell me. I don't want it to sound like that.
Yeah,
it was like, I don't want there to be this wall of silence between us.
Right.
Please tell me what you're thinking. Let's maybe do it slower. Maybe do it maybe at better times when I'm not exhausted, or we're both, but I didn't want this gap, because I knew that would have been the first step to the end.
Right.
It really did scare me.
We wouldn't have been able to recover from that.
For us, because
we've had to recover from a lot. And I think that would have,
So I guess if it's, that was for us. If there's a rule, I think that you should have these conversations, but have them when you're capable, when you're, we're not saying you have to talk, but like, it's important to have these conversations, but it's also important to have them when you're both feeling like it.
You still have to have compassion for the other person.
That's my favorite word.
Yeah, and understand. And I think I've always been good about that. About when I told you in the beginning, that was my biggest fear, because I knew how it was going to make you feel.
Well, weren't you a Mormon wife told to take care of my needs? Or my emotions?
Another episode.
Yeah. So you to worry about my emotions, right?
So anyways, but I was very aware and in tune to that. And I think you need to be as a couple.
Yeah. So have the hard conversations, but make sure you're wise about it.
Right.
Make sure. So that's, I think, what happened with us. We were like, so I went through that year and decided in the summer of 2020, I don't know what to do, but I want to keep my job. So I made a goal with my therapist was, I'm just going to work for another school year, and then I'll decide what to do. That was really safe. And it's weird, I say it was easy for me to deconstruct my religion while teaching the Book of Mormon as a seminary teacher, because I deconstructed down to Jesus, and I really love my Mormon Jesus.
And there is a lot in the Book of Mormon about Jesus.
Yeah, and so it was easy to teach what I still believe, but then I forgot.
No, you didn't forget. The church changed something.
Well, I forgot they changed something. So they had recently changed with Come Follow Me. They aligned seminary with Come Follow Me. So instead of starting a new book in the fall, we waited until January to start a new book, and the new book we started in January of 2021 was Doctrine and Covenants Church History. And when I say that when Kerry's faith left and my faith was unsupported, I turned to the church for that support, and it failed me miserably.
And if you want to get a really good background on our deconstructing our faith together, I do have a podcast I run with that I run with my sister, and it's been going on for about 9 months, I think, called Holy Sisters, and you can find it on any podcasting platform.
Link in the show notes, or maybe up there if we're good enough.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. Anyways, he's going to do all that. But and we did an episode together. Mm-hmm. What did we call that episode? The Big P.
Yeah, the Big P.
Yeah, because we talk about a lot of our deconstruction, and it's a good episode.
Yeah, what's the Big P?
Polygamy.
So
yeah, that was one of our big issues that took us a while to be able to have a healthy conversation about.
Yeah. Well, a friend of ours, we were at, again, one of these post-orthodoxy meetups, and a new friend of ours, she asked me, she said, when Kerry did you have your own shelf, or when Kerry told you that she left the church, did you just inherit her shelf? Mm-hmm. And I thought
and this is funny. I kind of got mad when she said that, because I was really into
You weren't there, I don't think, when I told you later.
Yeah, but you told me later. And I was really into this differentiation thing, Kate. It was a new, exciting word for me. And I was just angry. I was like, no, that is my shelf. We aren't so Mormon that we don't have our own shelves. But I understood what she was saying. Yeah. So go ahead.
So she said, did you have your own shelf, or was Kerry's shelf that did you in? And I thought for a second, first of all, I don't necessarily, this concept of having a shelf, when we watched Under the Banner of Heaven, I think they overused that in their dialogue. I think whenever somebody in the 80s, they probably would have told the characters, hey, worry about it. You can worry about that when we die. Elder Oaks is give it talks. Worry about it, we'll figure it out. And so I think every member of the church has at least two things on their shelf that they're going to figure out when they die. And the idea is that we all have these questions that we just put on a shelf. And you've used that analogy, just saying that your shelf broke.
Yes.
It
shattered.
It shattered. And
well, it became beyond repair.
Beyond repair,
I would say.
And I think every active member of the church has at least two things. And I might be wrong. Please let me know your thoughts. That they don't just, anything that you don't talk about in your marriage, at least, is a shelf item.
Right.
And it wasn't that I left because you left, or I haven't left. I'm still a member of Record. I still like the apps a lot.
I left.
Yeah, for your birthday, right?
Birthday, yeah.
You took but what I was trying to say is that for me, I'm lost. I forgot what I was saying.
For you, with my shelf was not your shelf.
Yeah, she didn't. It wasn't that. It was her lack of her support there. I then found myself in a situation where I had to at least explain my beliefs. They were unsupported. And it's a funny thing with teaching seminary, we changed scripture mastery to doctrine mastery, and part of that was helping students acquire spiritual knowledge by acting in faith. I know I still remember seeking truth from divinely appointed sources only, and examining concepts and questions from an eternal perspective. And I realized that those are tools that we were trying to give students, but when I tried to use those, they didn't work.
On yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had a conversation with my boss that January of 2021, and I just said, I have questions that I can't unask. They're not going to go away, but I can't address them while I'm still teaching full time.
Right.
And so in January of 2021, I quit my job, and I was on the phone actually with one of our siblings today, and I said that was the best day of my life. And since then, I haven't had chest pains. I would have chest pains of
and anxiety. I thought it was a normal thing. He's the only spouse I've ever had, so I thought it was a normal thing to have to rub your husband's chest in the morning and because he was so anxious to go to work.
Yeah.
I thought it was normal. It was, and I know that I realize now that's not normal.
Yeah.
To have that, sorry.
I was taking 2 mood stabilizers and 2 antidepressants because her and my psychiatrist said, "Oh wait, you're finally like functioning. We're going to use these. They would switch all the time, year round, seasonally. I haven't had a chest pain since. I don't take any psychotic medications anymore. I'm not saying that you have to or not. I'm just saying this is what happened for me. I feel more often, more abundantly, the thing that I told my students is the gifts of the Spirit. I am just, it's an overused word, but I'm happy and I have joy more often and more abundantly because life without manufactured shame is just bliss.
Yes, and you've been quoted saying that before.
I'm a Reddit meme.
Yes.
I said it on a podcast somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. So I quit my job a year and a half ago. I've enjoyed watching Kerry go to school, finish some schooling, start a new her own company.
Small business, yeah.
Her own, I'm in graduate school to become a licensed clinical social worker. And here we are, 2.5 years after you said you were done, a year and a half after I've quit my job. And we are starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully a community of sorts.
Yeah, and helping people find community. So, well, thanks for listening to our first podcast episode. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. I'm just excited to do this. Leave us a comment. Do all the things to like it.
Oh, if you're still listening, please share, like, and follow, and comment.
Right. Whatever it is you do on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.